Call to order County Commission for March the 18th. We have electronic voting in place. Some of you have already marked yourselves present.
You have knocked it out.
Frank?
Has knocked it off.
We now have 72 county commissioners.
Well, we need more.
Take a while to cast them.
There's three of them be like pop.
Yep, do that. That's what the problem we kept getting there, man.
Well, we were him. Had to read on it.
You need to change your screen for me or something. Okay, we're back to 21 commissioners again, so. So if you have your device, I'm gonna let Mr. Bolton, our IT director, explain.
Well, most of you already look like you're doing pretty good. If you got a present button on there, if you're here and you're present, if you're not here, don't press it. We are missing Jimmy Dale Patterson and Sam Sullivan, so I think we're good.
We have a quorum. We'll ask Mr. Douglas, our chaplain, if he'll lead us in our prayer. I'll ask Todd Kester if he would lead us in our pledge.
Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight once again thankful, Lord. Thankful for the country in which we live in our county. Father, we ask that you keep us ever mindful to make decisions tonight that will bring honor and glory to your name. Be with our great county, be with our leaders, be with our citizens. And thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, and the approaching season. In his name we pray. Amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, you'll find a copy of our agenda before you. A motion to approve our agenda would be in order. So,
Are we using these gadgets, or are we voting?
yeah, you can make a
Move to
motion.
approve.
Second.
A motion by Mr. Seal, second by Mr. Byrd. Any discussion on our agenda? You want him to vote electronically?
He's got an agenda item.
Okay, all right. All in favor of the agenda as presented, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Agenda is approved. I'd like to welcome our members of youth leadership who are with us tonight. Let me remind you, you have to stay for the entirety of the county commission meeting to get credit. So we're glad that you're here today. Guests and residents of Jefferson County, thank you for your attendance and participation. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. You have a copy of the minutes before you. A motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Mr. Scarlett, we have a second. Mr. Carmichael, any amendments or corrections to the minute? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes say aye. Aye. Opposed? Minutes are approved. Next item is appearance of citizens. Citizens' comment will be limited to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address when called. Melissa K. Daring Clymer, you'll go to the podium and state your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Melissa Clymer Deering. I live at 1436 Lacoma Drive in Jefferson City, 37760. Okay, and you, okay. I'm sorry, I've not done this before.
That's okay.
My request is very brief and very simple, but I think it's extremely important. It's for the good people in Jefferson County. My request is that we have a wheel tax exemption for those that are disabled and those that are senior citizens. They do have it in Knox County, and they have for years. And I am requesting for that for Jefferson County. I think it's desperately needed for those.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Second citizen, Matt Bobick.
Hello, I'm Matt Bobick. I live at 2736 Windy Cove Way in Sevierville. It's good to see you all again. I have a couple things to talk about this week, and I think some of you will be pleasantly surprised to know that none of them have to do with Parrots Chapel. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is I just wanted to say that I think the Commission in January made a great decision in adding another $20,000 in funding to CARE. I understand that some people on the Commission voted against that. I understand why, I respect why. But having, the animal shelter has been a topic of discussion here for a long time, and as I've been coming to these meetings, I've gotten more curious about it, and I've taken some time over the last couple of months with my family to head out to CARE, to the shelter, and take a look at what's going on there. And I can't imagine trying to run that place on $120,000 a year, let alone $100,000. They do a tremendous job. I would hope that anybody here would take some time to head out there and volunteer some time, walk the dogs, pet the cats. I mean, the number of animals that they have there is overwhelming, and they do a wonderful job. So I just wanted to say thank you to this commission for funding that endeavor. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is my understanding is resolution that Commissioner Carmichael brought up in January regarding the putting into place a law around how long leashes or chains need to be for animals that are housed outside. Housed is probably not the right word. My hope is that nobody here would be against that law. Please vote to pass that resolution. I think one of the things that we did, it's not unique to Jefferson County, but it's all over the country. Everybody seems to want to have a pet. Very few people, I should say fewer people, want to actually care for a pet. And both the care issue with the shelter and what Commissioner Carmichael has brought up here are evidence of that. So it breaks my heart to drive by houses day after day and see dogs that live on a 6-foot chain for their entire life. It's shameful. And the last thing that I would like to talk about is I would just, I'm not going to spend much time on it, but former Commissioner Seal's idea that he also brought up in January of having a grant coordinator, I think is worth, certainly at least worth exploring. I think the possibility of finding money out there for the county for various things is out there. And if there's somebody, I think it's worth at least taking a look at, is that something that could be financially beneficial to the county in the long run, is something worth looking at. So appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of notaries and bonds. You have a handout before you. A motion to approve these would be in order.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving these people as notaries and bonds, say aye. Aye. Opposed? They are approved. Reports from elected officials, department heads, and other officials. County Mayor, have 2 mayoral appointments for you tonight. The first one that I'll ask for your approval for is the Jefferson County E911 Communication Board, and that would be reappointment of Kyle McRae for March 2019 through March 2023. Motion to approve. Mr. Scarlett, second. Marcus Reed. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this appointment say aye. Aye. Opposed? Appointment is confirmed. The second one is Jefferson County Solid Waste Regional Planning Board. This appointment is mayoral appointment Jimmy Henry to continue Hoagie Snodgrass' term through April 2021. This is usually the same person that we have on our county solid waste board, and they also serve on the regional board. So a motion to approve that would be in order. Mr. Carmichael. Mr. Bales, second. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? That is also approved. Director of Schools, Mr. Potts is going to represent Mr. Johnston tonight, and you have a finance report from the audit also.
Yes, I do. Mr. Chairman, Dr. Johnston had an unexpected medical issue today, and he's under some testing right now, so he couldn't be there, and he asked me to represent him on a couple of issues. If it's the pleasure of the board, we would like to request the board suspend the rules to add 2 items for their consideration tonight. We've talked about both of these before, and they were approved by the school board this past Thursday. First item is the welding program at the high school. The school board approved $160,000 toward implementation of this welding program at the high school out of their capital outlay account. Does not use our fund balance. Total project after a donation from a local business was $320,000. That's the total cost. And so we're requesting a matching amount of $160,000 from County Commission, the County Economic Development Reserve that he's talked about before here. This approval would allow the students to be ready for welding 1 when school starts in August. That's the first item. The second item is the needs assessment that he's also talked about before. The school board is requesting permission to reallocate $125,000 out of their capital fund that was originally approved for windows to be used in a comprehensive needs assessment. This assessment will include the building envelope and all aspects of the building, and windows will certainly be part of what is identified to repair or replace.
That would take,
I think we have to
we'd
suspend
have
the
to
rules.
suspend the rules.
Suspend the rule and 2/3 majority.
2/3.
I'll make
So
a motion, we suspend the rules and vote on these 2.
Mr. Seals, second for Mr. Fagan. Any discussion on suspending the rules? If not, Mr. Herndon, would you do a roll call vote? It'll take 2/3.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
Randy Baxley.
Yes.
Paul Lowe.
Yes.
Michael Fagan.
Yes.
Greg Bird.
No.
Edna Langley.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes, sir.
Gene Etzlinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Ronnie Coleman.
Yes.
Terry Dockery.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
A.J. Walker.
Yes.
Marcus Reed.
Yes.
Heidi Thomas.
Yes.
So the 18 to 1 is our vote. So the first item to be considered would be the welding of how much amount?
$160,000.
$160,000. A motion to amend that budget, school budget, or is this?
No, this is for the county side to come out of the County Economic Development Reserve. There's $1 million that was reserved, I believe it was last year. There's $1 million.
Was that a motion?
For $160,000?
Yes.
Yes, so moved.
Motion. Ms. Huffaker. So we have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Second item.
Second item is $125,000 from the schools capital fund. The amounts that are in that account were originally set up to be used for windows approximately 3 years ago, and those are funds that are available. They're just trying to shift those toward this needs assessment that will be a comprehensive study of the facilities.
Mr. Fagan, Ms. Huffaker. Have a motion and second. Discussion. Mr. Docker.
Quick question, does that include ADA compliance needs?
It does not include ADA. If we had included ADA as a separate item, this number would have been approximately twice that amount.
You might
Yes, sir.
want to comment, Mr. Langman, about, we're going to visit that just shortly,
The ADA?
the ADA thing.
Right, that'll come up in the budget when it's on the budget agenda, I think. Yeah.
Other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition. Audit.
Okay, the other item I have is the audit committee met tonight, and the chair asked me to represent him. He had to leave. Tonight, or this afternoon, we elected officers. It's the first time we've met this year. Gary Jett's chair, John Neal Scarlett's vice chair, and Miss Phyllis Best is the secretary. We addressed all the annual audit reports except for the county that's not quite ready. We're about 2 weeks away on that. But we did address there's two findings, both of them deal with the landfill closure, post-closure that's been there since, I think they said 96, anyway, a long time. Those are the only two findings we had there. And then there were some segregation of duties issue on the school funds account that we've also addressed. They reviewed all those, and we're good to go. Any questions?
Thank you, sir. This moves us to old business. So if we can have your patience on this one, we're going to try to use electronic voting on this item. Commissioner Carmichael on second reading, Resolution 2019-03, resolution to waive the county motor vehicle tax for vehicles receiving exemption under Chapter 923 of the Public Acts of 2018 for volunteer firefighters and rescue squad personnel. A motion would be in order.
No, now if you got whoever wants the motion, use your motion button. There's a motion button on there. And there's a second.
So we have a motion from Mr. Walker and a second by Mr. Coleman.
Now you have a right to discuss, or a time to talk. If you want to speak on it, you hit the RTS or request to speak button. If you want to discuss it.
Do you want to talk about it? Push the RTS.
Let's just, somebody just do it for just somebody. Todd Kesterson's in there.
I'm in there.
Marcus Reed is 2.
All right.
So
I'm sorry.
if this was an item for discussion, it would number you in the order that you mash your request to speak button. And that way, Mr. Solomon won't be calling me out like he did one time when I overlooked him.
So technically, you're still absent anyway, according to the law.
I don't have a vote, so it doesn't matter.
For clarity.
I appreciate you catching that.
So it'll still be up to the chairman to point out that, Todd's got the, or Chairman Kesterson's, Commissioner Kesterson's got the first vote or first discuss, and then it'll allow him to start talking, and then we'll go in order.
So my question right now is there someone who wants to discuss it in real time?
Okay.
Todd.
I got a question.
Mr. Kesterson first.
Sorry, I was number 1.
That's right. Do you want to speak?
Randy, sure.
Number 4.
I guess the only question that I've really got about this whole thing is we've just seen proof of what's going to come down the pike as far as other people and other things requesting an exemption. So are we opening up something that we're willing to take on, or is this something that we really want to deal with?
Who's next? You got a number 2 there, Frank? Jimmy Carmichael. Mr. Carmichael.
I would like to answer to Mr. Kesterson is that we, as this voting body, can't change the rule because it's a state law. The state voted to give us the opportunity to accept this for emergency personnel, only in volunteer status. We can't change it to anyone else until our state legislature tells us we can. That's how the law is written. That was the answer CTAS gave me. Is that we can't modify that law because we're using a state law that says we're allowed to do only this for volunteer personnel. We can't say that we're going to exempt everybody that they're odd number and they're born on the 27th of the month. We can't do that. It's not allowed by the state.
Request to speak, discussion. Did you want to speak?
Not on the motion, I got a question about this thing.
Okay, what's your question?
Go ahead and do your motion, and I'll ask you.
You want us to go ahead and vote? Okay. We're going to use roll call voting, so either yes or no. And anyone abstaining, you could you can't abstain unless I sign in and I'm absent, so that's what I'm told.
No, it's not going to let you vote.
It's not going to let them vote. You'll have to do it the old-fashioned way.
They didn't rush it.
There we go.
Now, once you press your vote, once the last person votes, it automatically tallies.
So, yes if you're in favor, no if you're against.
If you get the wrong one, you can change it. If you get the wrong one, you can change it. That's what you want. No.
There it goes.
So it has failed. And so it changed?
It
I'm showing
passed.
14 votes, that's what we need.
Okay.
We're talking to the software provider, where he's counted, he's not counted in the 21, but this is counting. So it's 14 votes, so he passes.
Okay.
They're fixing that.
Yeah, the software people are fixing that. Yes, sir.
Chairman, for the record, just please note me as voting abstain with cause.
Okay. Mr. Carmichael. Mr. Scarlett.
Golly.
Well, I didn't call you Shrek, so.
That's good. Is this thing going to time and do all that, or?
I think there's a cutoff on the voting time limit. I don't know what that is. Is it 8 seconds? When people vote?
No, I mean on the speaking, like when they get on the floor, does it automatically keep up with that?
We can set a timer on people's speaking.
So when citizens' comments come up, there'll be 3 minutes and they'll be able, once the monitors are up in here, I know it's hard to see here and I appreciate your patience, but there will be monitors that people in the audience can see, people on county commission can see, so when someone speaks, there'll be a 3-minute timer. When county commissioners speak, there'll be 6 minutes on it. So if you want to use the bulk of your time, you can, or however you want to do it. But there will be a timer that will be on the monitors that you can see. All right. Are we going to do this? So next item on the agenda. Okay, Next item is Resolution 2019-10. And this is for the safety study on Highway 92 that we talked about in work session. A motion to approve would be in order. Ms. Huffaker, second by Mr. Blevins. Discussion. All in favor of Resolution 2019-10 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes without opposition. Resolution 2019-11 is a resolution regarding local preparations related to the 2020 census for Jefferson County. A motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Mr. Seals. Second. Mr. Scarlett. Discussion. Did you second that, or was that Mr. Docker?
I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't.
Mr. Carmichael.
Me too.
They look alike.
Mr. Fagan. Okay. Any discussion? Any further discussion on the resolution? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes without opposition. Resolution 2019-16. Resolution to urge the General Assembly to adopt an equitable distribution of local sales tax from out-of-state sellers. Motion to approve will be in order.
So moved.
Mr. Sales, second. Marcus Reed, did you second that? Second. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition. As part of our ADA compliance, you'll find a letter, and I had it on work session, but I have the letter for you now. It's a compliance letter that will go to the administrator for TDOT, stating our ADA compliance. We have it in our business meeting tonight to approve a company that's going to do our ADA compliance. This letter here will be to inform TDOT that we're working toward our ADA compliance and make us conform with what we need to do to make sure we do not lose TDOT funding in the coming year. So I would ask just approval of this letter that you find in your package that I have drafted to go to TDOT.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Scarlett, second by Ms. Huffaker. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes without opposition. Resolution 2019-13, authorizing a continuous 5-year reappraisal program. This comes from Susan Gass, tax assessor. Motion to approve will be in order.
So moved.
Motion, Mr. Reed, second. Mr. Coleman. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of this resolution say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition. Mr. Potts, approval of the debt policy that has been presented to you for approval.
So moved.
Mr. Scarlett, second by Mr. Carmichael. Discussion. All in favor of approval of the debt policy say aye. Aye. Opposed? Debt policy is approved. Local government agency retiree coverage election to opt in. Do we need action on that to continue? So this will be a motion to continue our local government agency retiree coverage election that we currently have. Motion to approve would be in order.
So moved.
Mr. Seal, second by Ms. Huffaker. Discussion.
I have a question.
Certainly.
This is I want to make sure this is right. This is the one that Mr. Potts seems to think is the best path, right? That's what I want to make sure. That's it. Thank you.
Good question. Other items? All in favor of the local government agency retiree coverage election say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition. Resolution 2019-06. This is a resolution to declare as surplus and to authorize the Sheriff's Department of Jefferson County to dispose of equipment.
So moved.
Mr. Scarlett.
Second.
Mr. Testerson. Discussion. All in favor of this resolution say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition. Resolution 2019-09 is a resolution to declare a surplus and to authorize the archives of Jefferson County to dispose of office equipment.
So moved.
Mr. Seal, Mr. Carmichael. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution passes. Resolution 2019-12, resolution to declare a surplus and to authorize Dandridge Memorial Library of Jefferson County to dispose of office equipment. 2 items, the monitor and keyboard as county sees fit, and the third item, a printer to be donated to Wartburg Public Library with arrangements to be delivered by the regional library staff. Mr. Coleman, have a second. Ms. Langley. We have a motion second, discussion. All in favor of 2019-12 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes without opposition. Mr. Scarlett, first item under Budget Committee is American with Disabilities Act.
Yes, sir. Before we get started on that, I got one more question about this electronic thing.
Okay.
If we want to call for the question, where's the button?
Request to speak, I guess.
Just right when you are in line, if you say third or fourth, then it's your turn. Call for the question.
Okay. All right, first item, American Disabilities, we are requesting, it came from the Facilities Committee, is that right, Mr. Langdon? And to the Budget Committee, we're requesting a contract with Partners on a professional service agreement to do a needs assessment on the ADA. And the amount of money is $118,000, with it coming from a reserve of ADA money that we set aside a couple of years ago. Comes from the Budget Committee. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. Mr. Hufford.
That's for the schools and for
That covers the schools and the county, all county buildings for ADA. They got them to bundle it all together. So we'll be able to take care of the schools and the county.
Other discussion. All in favor of approving this contract say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition. General Fund 101, Amendment Number 7.
General Fund 101, Amendment Number 7 affects the reserve balance but does not affect fund balance. Not a lot of things in it. It's just moving money, insurance recoveries, a couple of library things, and that's about it. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Coming from committee discussion. Hearing none, all in favor of this amendment say aye. Aye. Opposed? Amendment is approved as presented. Capital Fund 171, Amendment Number 2.
Reallocates the administrative security grant funds, $26,100. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition.
General Fund Purpose 141, Budget Amendment Number 7 for Jefferson County Schools comes out of reserve balance for expenditures on the baseball stadium, plus other grants, additional equipment, and some exceptional children's service. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition.
General Purpose 141, Amendment Number 8 transfers employees to full CTE program. Transportation, regular student instruction, other student support affects reserve balance total of $3,122.62. Does not affect fund balance. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes without opposition.
Next item on it, we have General Dunn here. He has requested for us to fund a grant. The Budget Committee, he requested 2 grants. The Budget Committee said that we would fund 1, and he was going to come back and let us know which one. One grant is the one we fund now for $10,000. It is limited to, help me out there, gentlemen, victims of sexual.
Yes.
If you would speak to what we've got now, and then.
If I may.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, members, this would be a victim witness coordinator who works in General Sessions Court, but it's limited in what she can do, she or he can do in General Sessions Court, and it has to do with sexual offenses, domestic violence, and stalking. And if that would be, if we continue the one that we're on, a little over 2 years ago, y'all voted to fund a grant, it's an 80-20 match is what it is, and it's around $10,000 or so. Langdon would have to tell you exactly on that, but that's about what it would cost the county for a victim witness coordinator. The new grant that it would, if we apply for it and get it, the new grant then would allow that person in General Sessions Court, though, to not only do these offenses, but to do all the offenses that come before that have victims of crime in Jefferson County, Tennessee. So it expands it, so to be. Not only that, but it could be if there's a victim, say a young adolescent or even pre-adolescent that's a victim of a crime and develops a rapport with that victim witness coordinator in General Sessions Court, and then she could go with it and follow that case up to the circuit courts as well. Whereas the one that we're under now that expires June the 30th of this year does not allow that. So it expands the services, same amount of money, but it expands the services for Jefferson County Victim Witness Coordinator.
Recommendation from the Budget Committee is that we prefer the latter, that allows it to be all victims. But if we did not get that grant, we would continue funding the first grant. So that was what the Budget Committee passed. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Other discussion? Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition.
All right, the last thing is Class 3 Cell B closure. Request from Sanitation Department for $588,000, which is $569,700 for Hummel excavation, and $18,517.50 for Thompson Engineering to put in 3 wells. It was to be used out of the 207 cash reserve fund. Am I saying that right, Mr. Lang?
Sure.
It does not necessarily have a fund balance as much as it has cash reserve. We are in, as you heard, we have a finding from the state which has been there, which we are indebted already on that for $3.7 million. So this does take cash out of that fund, or funds that would be set aside for that. It was recommended by the Budget Committee. So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion. Mr. Carmichael.
I'd like to amend to read that I would like to see a report every month on how this is progressing and that how the new sale is progressing for Mr. Goff.
So you're making a motion?
I'm making a motion to amend what the Budget Committee approved, to say that we want a report each month of how this is progressing.
We have a motion to amend. Is there a second?
Second.
Several. Mr. Byrd. Discussion.
Are you asking, Mr. Carmichael, is it like a percentage or a detail or what?
And what I'm fixing to ask in the discussion is, if y'all would indulge me for a second, I would like to see the same thing done to the sale, so we as commissioners know how the progress is going. That we know, like if we're 50% with our construction, and that's what I'm trying to do. is just have a report so we know. David comes in, he says, hey, we're 40% done. We got sale going on, we got Hummel doing their work, we got everything going. It's just a small report, really nothing important.
Tracking this project?
Tracking the project.
Tracking this project. Mr. Douglas, you want to speak?
I guess this is just, today, that he said in the budget committee meeting that he thought he could save us some money on this. And if we give him the whole amount, I'd just like, just as a reminder, David, you know, I don't mean this pointedly, but I'm gonna remember that you said you thought you could save us some money on this, and you thought you could bring it in a little under this figure.
Mr. Docker.
Just a general comment on that, Commissioner Douglas, from my experience. If I understand correctly, they took bids, Landfill Board or David's group took bids on this work, and it was bid out as a complete scope of work. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my past experience, when people bid on a scope of work, they normally expect to get the entire scope of work. Now, I think we ought to give him that amount because that's what their bid was for. I think the group that they've selected, I think we'll work with him and let him do some work in-house and not try to hold him to the full contract. So he may be tied as to what he can or cannot do. David, you can speak for yourself on that.
And that's what I said. I said I hoped that we could save some. I've not been able to speak to excuse me, Mr. Hummel, because I've been waiting on approval or disapproval. I mean, there's no sense negotiating if we're not going to proceed. So my hope is that we'll be able to do that. There are several materials that have to be bought. He's paying taxes on materials. We can buy it tax-free, so let us buy all the materials. There's a few of the items that we're going to be able to do coordinating with him if he is open to that I mean, it's going to be up to him.
That's all I was asking, David, is just, you know, you said you might be able to save us a little money on it. Just please work as diligently toward that as you can on that, because we're in a tight budget cycle already. So I know this doesn't affect, it's apples and oranges, but still, it's county money, so just help it. All I'm doing is prolonging the meeting. I'll shut up.
Let me get back on target. We have an amendment to the motion. To the resolution on that we need to discuss the amendment on requiring or asking for a timetable or a percentage of completion on the project. Is there any discussion on the amendment? If not, we will vote on Mr. Carmichael's amendment. Do you all in favor of the amendment say aye? Aye. Opposed? Resolution is amended.
Can I ask for some clarity on that? So
certainly.
If you're asking for a monthly meeting and this body doesn't meet monthly, am I to email it? Am I to give it to Janice and let her distribute it? How would you like that?
Carry it to the next meeting. I said meeting.
You said monthly.
He did say monthly.
But I did say monthly, but if you don't have a meeting, naturally you carry it to the next one.
So you want updates at county commission meetings?
Yes.
Okay.
Can that be in a written format, just for clarification? Okay.
I'm good with that.
So you can send it. So we're back to the motion from the Budget Committee. Mr. Scarlett.
I'd like to amend the motion to also state, since we're going out and spending this money, one of the things that we need with that new cell going in and everything is the re-permitting process. We're in the middle of it, and it seems to have taken quite a long time. I'd like to see the same updates from the state. Request that from Mr. Gould, if he would contact the state monthly to find out where they're at on the re-permit process and keep us updated, give us their email reply or a letter. And that's my motion for an update.
So we have an amendment.
I'll do that. I mean, however you want to do the motion, but I don't care to do that.
Do we have a second to the amendment? Mr. Bales. Discussion on the amendment. Hearing none, all in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It is amended. We're back to the original as amended to include project reports on the closing of the well and status report on the permit status that's going on. That can be done at our meetings, and it can also be done in a written format. Is that clear? Other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Trying to have a roll call vote on this.
Okay.
We're pulling it out of a fund.
Certainly.
Is this vote included Amendment 2 and Amendment 3?
It's the motion as amended.
Twice.
But, I mean, right here.
2 amendments.
There's 2 amendments on the agenda.
The monitoring well and the cell closure.
Yes, monitoring well and the cell closure.
Yeah.
Both of them together. That's the way the budget committee passed it. 588,000
Can we do roll
change.
call? Okay. Mr. Turner, call the roll.
Katie Huffaker.
Yes.
Todd Kesterson.
Yes.
Steve Douglas.
Yes.
Randy Baxter. Paul Lowe.
Yes.
Michael Fagan.
Yes.
Greg Bird.
Yes.
Edna Langley.
Yes.
Tim Seals.
Yes.
Robert Blevins.
Yes.
Gene Esslinger.
Yes.
Randy Bales.
Yes.
John Neal Scarlett.
Yes.
Ronnie Coleman.
Yes.
Terry Dockery.
Yes.
Jimmy Carmichael.
Yes.
AJ Walker.
Yes.
Marcus Reed.
Yes.
Heidi Thomas.
Yes.
19-0 passes. Next item is Resolution 2019-08. This comes from committee. And we're going to do this on a roll call vote. Mr. Carmichael, this comes from your committee.
Yes. Public service.
So it's a resolution adopting regulations regarding care and restraint of dogs and cats in Jefferson County, Tennessee. Ms. Thomas.
I'd like to propose an amendment to include the language that is highlighted in the handout that was given to you at the beginning of the session.
And I'll second her motion.
So your motion came from committee, so it didn't need a second.
Right, but
She's amending it.
So we got to deal with the amendment
Right.
first before we can go back to the original motion.
So Mr. Thomas's amendment was handed out. It's highlighted in yellow. It's, and you second her amendment.
Yes.
So discussion on the amendment. Mr. Byrd.
Okay, I've been trying to go through all this. I was told all the yellow is the amendment, right?
That's being added too. It's actually clarification.
There's a lot of euthanization in this amendment. If expiration of 5 to 7 days, animal control officer may place the animal up for adoption or humanly euthanize. I mean, it's in here more than once. There's some things also I have issue with on this. I mean, we keep pushing now for no-kill shelters, but we're talking about euthanization now. I don't know how that's fitting in there. I mean, there's some questions I have, like, it says something about the, where was it at? Talk about how much the animal's fed. See, but it says here, is the proper amount of food for each animal, who decides that? I mean, if the animal's bony, I mean, I understand that. But it's very vague, the way it is presented here, which, you know, and there's just, I mean, there's a lot to go through. And I just don't feel comfortable without going through this whole thing and looking at it.
Sorry. Mr. Carmichael, you wanted to speak to it?
I'd like to speak to that. The reason the euthanization clause is in there, and it's really a legal termination, because what it is, in legal terms, if you seize an animal that is in such bad shape that it can't be saved, and it's going to be a real cost to try to care for this animal. That's why the euthanization clause has to be put in it at different areas through the whole thing. You know, it's a safety net for the county and CARE to understand that, hey, if this animal's eat plumb and half with the mange, you know, are we going to spend our funds trying to save this animal, or are we going to euthanize it? At some time, you've got to draw a line and say, okay, I may be against euthanization, but, you know, we got a budget we got to keep also. So we got to draw a line somewhere and say this is where that line's drawn. But you got to have a clause in there somewhere. You may not like the wording, but it's got to be there.
Mr. Bales.
Speaking from the ACOB, what we've discussed in there, I know that euthanasia is a very last resort, and it's only used whenever it's the most humane thing to do. Like, there's no way that an animal is going to recover. That is what I've seen through the ACOB board and talking to the people.
So this don't change the way we do it anymore.
It doesn't really change it. It's a last resort. The dog's been hit by a car and its lungs is punctured, they're going to put it down. I mean, that's the only humane thing to do at certain points.
This, I do know this resolution came from, for clarification, this came from Williamson County. Our attorney found it, and the Animal Control Oversight Board met on this. Ms. Thomas and some others wanted more clarification on when an animal is surrendered or when an animal is, the animal control officer gets it. And this is what they came up with, Mr. Byrd, from Williamson County, hoping to provide some clarity on what was ambiguous. And I understand there's some more areas that are not clear, but this gives some guidance to the animal control officer here. Discussion. Vote on the, Mr. Kesterson.
Who enforces this, animal control?
Yes. Or it also says another law enforcement officer, so I guess if animal control wasn't in there, then the sheriff could enforce. But it says, doesn't it say a law enforcement officer?
Yeah.
And or? Okay, Mr. Dockery.
Since we just received this tonight instead of our workshop, and at least probably most of us have had time to discuss it with people in the area, I'd like to move to postpone it to our next meeting.
Second. I have a motion and a second to postpone to the next meeting. Discussion on postpone. All in favor of postponing, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Ayes have it. This will be at our next work session. You'll have more time to read. Next item is Commissioner Michael Fagan, Rob Levin's Resolution 2019-14 in support of proposed broadband legislation. Mr. Blevins, this doesn't need a motion or a second because it's two commissioners. Mr. Blevins, do you want to speak to this?
No, sir. I think it's pretty common sense, really.
Mr. Fagan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to encourage everyone to support this body through Resolution 2017-44. Supported the legislation that was passed by the General Assembly. It's a good first step. Didn't quite go far enough. We have some additional issues that need to be addressed. This current resolution assists in that effort to bring more competition to the process so that the citizens of the county can get better service and hopefully less expensive service. Thank you.
Other discussion? All in favor of it? Sorry,
I have
Mr.
one
Byrd.
more question. I'm confused on some of this stuff now because since I agree we need broadband. But my thing is, as I'm driving from one school to another in Sevier County, if you've ever been back in some of them hollows, there's all kinds of signs where you can purchase up to 100, I think it's megabytes, MBS, or whatever, MBS, of high-speed internet and it gives it 888 number, 800 number, all these signs. And I even had one there by my house here in Jefferson County where they'd had, what is that about? I know we were talking about getting, I mean, is there a business out there that provides it and we're not using it? And is that what we're wanting to allow here? I know we're restricted in what, who can service the counties, and that's what I'm confused about. Is this an option that people really have, that they can call this company and they can get internet without having to go through Charter, Spectrum, or I don't know who else is in this county. But I don't understand how it's available in these backwoods areas. And we talk about using Morristown, or we want to do Appalachian to provide in this area. I'm all for that. I mean, don't get me wrong on that. I'm just as confused after seeing all these signs what they're talking about.
Without seeing the sign, I don't know what to address specifically. I can tell you that, for example, there are areas where you can get only either cellular service or perhaps satellite service. And neither one of those are going to be at these kind of speeds. If the chairman would indulge me, I would like to ask Mr. Seal to address that, if he would, because...
Give me 1 second, Ms. Thomas, please speak.
I just wanted
and then I'll do that, okay?
Just to point out, it can be purchased. And in fact, the library will very shortly, you will be able to check out the personal hotspots. You can check out personal hotspots from the Morristown Library. So you can actually purchase high-speed internet.
Mr. Seal.
Am I first to address Mr. Bird's questions? Most of the signs you see in the county are transmitted services that come through the airwaves. And if you have a tree in the way or a hill in the way or the weather's a little bit foggy, you might have interrupted service. These services are excellent services, by the way. There's the owner of one of these that I spoke to in Chestnut Hill at the Parish Chapel meeting, and they transmit 100 down and 100 up symmetrical service. It's excellent. But what we're trying to do here is give utilities and municipalities and counties and private businesses the opportunity to work together through joint ventures that they're restricted from involving in now. So if this were to pass as a state law, these utilities would have 5 or 6 choices they don't have right now to deliver fiber to the premises. And that would include franchise agreements. It would include utilities like Morristown, for example. There used to be 7, but now there's 11 utilities like Morristown that are internet capable. But if they have a subdivision outside their service boundaries, they can't sell the internet to them. Appalachian Electric, for example, if they undertake internet, what they're probably going to do is get a grant and put fiber in the county from point to point, lease that fiber to a private business like a telephone exchange or something like that, which does not promote a whole lot of competition. If this were to pass, it will break that wide open and we'll have more competition to compete for customers. That's what the basis of the whole thing is.
Okay, thank you.
This resolution is to ask the General Assembly to enact legislation to allow these providers to do that.
And later on, if you're in question about any of it, I've been saturated in it for 5 years. I'll sit down and show you line for line what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Who else had a question here?
It's only one. Other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries without opposition. We have come to the conclusion of our regular meeting. Remember, we have a beer board meeting, and I think I was supposed to have y'all vote on that by roll call, but I didn't. So, a motion to adjourn would be in order.
So moved.
Motion to adjourn, second.